Happy Tuesday to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast. There are lots of things to cover weather-wise, whether that's our forecast or we're talking about Hurricane Melissa. So we'll go over the latest data with all of that. But first things first, we got our fair share of rain yesterday for the first time in quite a while. And you will see right here, I haven't picked apart any locations. We're going to go pretty location specific here in just a moment. But I wanted to just show you that you can see the general agreement that areas farther to the north saw more rainfall than areas farther down to the south, especially up in the northern portion of the state of Georgia, where you see that widespread green color. That's going to indicate your rainfall totals of at least 1 inch. But we have some patchy areas of green across right smack dab in the middle of central Georgia, Bibb County over into Twiggs County, Houston, Peach over into Crawford, Monroe, and portions of Jones County. And then you can see some isolated pockets of that green elsewhere. So here's a look at our northernmost counties. You can see most totals are going to find themselves below 1 inch, but maybe some of those pockets of green around 1.5 inches in southwest Putnam County, about 1 inch of rain just north of Milledgeville, 1/2 inch of rain over in Sparta, 0.2 inches of rain over in Washington County. Then as you make your way into this cluster of green, 1.5 inches of rain around Bolingbroke, getting into kind of the central Macon area right there off Vineville Avenue. We can zoom in on this a little bit farther where you can see some locations got even above 2 inches of rain. So consider yourself very, very lucky if you were one of those areas. This is going to be just north of the Zebulon Road exit as you go up 475 north. 2.3 inches of rain. A little bit farther down to the south, you get over into West Bibb County, over 1 inch of rain. Here in downtown Macon, 1 inch exactly. And right here on the county line of Peach and kind of that little edge of Crawford County as you get into I-75 right there, right along southern Bibb County, 2 inches of rain, 2.5 inches of rain over just to the east of Roberta, and 2.5 inches of rain also really close to our radar down in Jeffersonville. But if you pick apart our southernmost counties, there was not too much rain to be found. Maybe 0.3 inches of rain, 0.6 inches of rain, 0.8 inches of rain in portions of Telfair County. But you will even see some pixels that I grabbed that don't even equate to around 1/10 inch of rain. Right around Alamo, you have maybe only a couple 1/100ths of an inch of rain. Same story for Vienna and the same story for Cordele as you make your way down I-75. So at Middle Georgia Regional Airport, where we typically get all of our numbers, we did get enough rain to actually have a total right there for the 27th of October, marking the 4th day that we have recorded rain at Middle Georgia Regional Airport in the month so far. We actually got our fair share of rain, actually over 3/4 of an inch of rain. So our total for the month of October, not for our entire year, excuse me, just over 1.25 of an inch. So we're about 0.99 inches below what we typically see on average in the month of October. We do have another round of widespread rain incoming tomorrow afternoon, but I don't think it's going to put our numbers anywhere close to that average. And then the rest of the month of October is trending dry. So I don't think we're quite going to make it to average for what we typically see in October. And it's going to mark another red box on that 2025 year-to-date rainfall that we've seen since the beginning of the year. So your main headlines with your forecast: cloud cover is staying put today. So we're keeping the clouds that we had yesterday. However, we're not necessarily dealing with as widespread showers that we saw in the morning and into the afternoon. We will have a front coming in tomorrow, and that's going to create one last round of some widespread rain chances. And we will be clearing in time for Halloween, but it is going to take a bit of time to clear after the passage of our front tomorrow. We're still going to hold on to a couple of spotty sprinkles as we go into the day on Thursday. So this has been the name of the game on your quad view over the past couple of days, really just the last 24 to 36 hours, getting back into Sunday evening. Widespread, pretty dense cloud cover and some pockets of some light rain that you maybe can get a glimpse of off to the north and the northeast here in downtown Macon, making your way up into portions of Jones County. Down in Warner Robins, it still looks like a very wet atmosphere. Cohen Walker Drive is very well saturated, but the grass still has a pretty good brown color to it off Cohen Walker Drive in Warner Robins. Looks like a brief sprinkle ongoing or just came through the Georgia National Fairgrounds. You can see a bit of that glistening, so some of the puddles that are still standing by the walkways at the Georgia National Fairgrounds, and of course your fair share of water droplets that are on our Skycam lens. And then in downtown Dublin, where the grass is actually looking the greenest of any location that we have on our Skycams, but downtown Dublin also still has its fair share of wet roads, so you're going to continue to have a lot of that mist that kicks up from the tires of the car in front of you or from your tires itself, and that is also kind of combined with some lower level cloud cover and is creating some limited visibility. So make sure to take it slower on the roads all throughout today until we can finally get a drier atmosphere and some peaks of sunshine to allow for the evaporation of all of that surface moisture. Your temperatures have been unchanging over the last day or so. Low to mid 50s. We haven't seen any fluctuation in these numbers since the early morning hours. 56 at the warmest up in Eatonton, 55 in our fair share of areas. We have a couple of scattered 52s, but we didn't see that high of temperatures yesterday afternoon. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. We can continue to see a bit of this wedge setup, these northeasterly winds trying to funnel down some of this cooler air from areas of the Appalachian Mountains and up into the Carolinas and Virginia. 47 for a temperature up in Charlotte, 55 over in our neighboring areas like Charleston. And then as you go down into Florida, starting to see a 74 in Orlando, but 80 degrees at the warmest over in Houston, Texas. Much of the southeast United States, however, is somewhere in the 50s, maybe right on the cusp of the 60-degree mark. It's the farther and farther west that you travel that you start to see some slightly warmer temperature values like 66 over in Jackson and a 69 over in New Orleans. Taking a look at your dew point temperatures, it is continuing to be a pretty dry atmosphere. Dew point temperatures in the lower half of the 50s, maybe a few areas of very, very faint light green that you can catch. But overall, this is just continuing to show you that, yes, it is a very dry atmosphere, and that is one of the reasons that we're not necessarily dealing with that much in the way of rain chances besides a couple of isolated sprinkles. So the humidity levels, that drier air continuing to funnel down from the north and the northeast. It's more humid over to the west, back into Mississippi, more humid down as you go into Florida, and coastal areas of Georgia and South Carolina still holding on to a bit of moisture in the air. And the winds also still remaining gusty. 16-mile-per-hour gusts up in Milledgeville, 18-mile-per-hour gusts in Eastman, and a 20-mile-per-hour gust in Vidalia. Areas in this yellow shade throughout the afternoon have the potential for some wind gusts like you already see, or maybe even up to 25 miles per hour. Some of the sustained winds even above 10 miles per hour, 13-mile-per-hour sustained wind down in Bleckley County. So we'll hold on to a steady breeze all throughout today, which can make the atmosphere feel a little bit chillier with the temperatures that we do have. Not actually on your feels like temperatures graphic. However, you are combining that with plenty of cloud cover, plenty of rain. It's already just an atmosphere that you want to just kind of curl up inside under a blanket, and that perfect afternoon nap weather is what I like to call it. So 51 for a morning low yesterday, pretty similar to our morning temperature values this morning, but only a high temperature of 57 degrees. There was a 6-degree increase between your morning low and your afternoon high temperature compared to what we normally see on average, which is nearly a temperature increase of about 30 degrees. Average low 48 degrees this time of year. So our low yesterday morning, just a couple degrees above average, but still kind of right around where we should be this time of year. But your afternoon high didn't even get close to that 75-degree mark. We fell 18 degrees shy of what we typically see for average highs this time of year. So, of course, we didn't get anywhere close to the record back in 1919 of 89 degrees. Your record low, 30 degrees back in 1968. So very thankful that at least our morning low temperatures haven't been even chillier. If you were to combine the rainy atmosphere we had yesterday with morning low temperatures of the 30-degree mark, we would be talking snow here in central Georgia. And very thankfully, I think we could use a year off of that after we got our fill of snow back in early January. So taking a look at our precipitation value, it puts us nearly 3 inches above where we should be in the year of 2025 as a whole. So I did mention yesterday that number was down there closer to the 2-inch mark, but now we have seen a pretty substantial bounce back up in the positive direction, just kind of giving us another bit of a cushion to undergo a dry stretch that we typically see a lot of this time of year. Sunrise yesterday, 7:48. Sunset was at 6:48. And those numbers continue to change by about a minute or two each and every day. Here's a look at your hour-by-hour temperatures. Go ahead and get used to the numbers you just saw on the temperature map. That's going to be present all throughout the warmest part of the afternoon, 3, 4, and 5 o'clock. A combination of rain-cooled air and pretty dense cloud cover, not allowing for any breaks in it to allow that sunshine to reach the surface and start to heat the surface, will be a reason why our temperatures are remaining kind of the same values throughout today. So I did go with a high temperature that is a little bit higher than that graphic, just like I did yesterday. 58 degrees Very likely that most areas don't even hit that threshold temperature-wise. We could hover nearly 20 degrees below average today in light of the mostly cloudy skies. But the difference is, and maybe even a bit of silver lining, only a few sprinkle showers as opposed to widespread showers that are kind of steadier and heavier in nature like we did see all throughout the afternoon yesterday. Northeast winds around 5 to 10 miles per hour sustained, but the occasional gust could get up to around 20 or even 25 miles per hour throughout this afternoon. Here's your satellite and radar image where it continues to pick apart broken cloud cover. We've been having some issues with this all morning long, so take this with a grain of salt. I think we do have some clouds that are closer to the surface that the satellite imagery isn't necessarily picking up the best on. Your cloud cover is widespread from north to south, west over to east here in central Georgia. So whether you live in Jasper County, down into Wilkinson County, Telfair, Wheeler counties, over to Taylor and Macon counties, everyone has the same atmosphere. It is very cloudy and you have the chance of a sprinkle or a drizzle all throughout today. The rain is actually going to be found farther up to the northeast of us, back into the Carolinas and up into Virginia. And it's all courtesy of the low pressure center that sent us our rain yesterday. That has since moved over the peninsula of Florida and kind of the southeast United States over into the Atlantic Ocean. Yesterday morning it was sitting just to the south of the Florida Panhandle, so you will see this on the surface map. One low pressure center is continuing to exit stage right, maybe moving up to the north and the northeast, but there's a whole lot more moisture and a whole lot more widespread rain back up into North Carolina and Virginia courtesy of this cutoff low. But enter low pressure system number 2, which is currently over to the west up into northern Texas. This is going to continue to move across the southern United States, just like our first cutoff low did, but we're actually going to watch that low pressure center pass us just to the north, up into areas like Tennessee, Kentucky, over into western North Carolina. But that cold front that is over on the very far left side of your screen, it's barely within view of the scene camera view on our graphic, that's going to continue to push farther and farther over to the east, and that's going to drape down from the south of that center of low pressure, and that's going to kind of mash up against whatever moisture that we have left in our forecast and create some pretty organized rain chances as we go into tomorrow. But first things first, we'll just talk about the rest of today. Nice and cloudy and a couple sprinkle showers that are so light in nature, it may be more of a mist. And also it's going to be so light in nature, our satellite and radar is not really going to be able to pick it up. So of course, if you do run across some rain, it's probably going to be attributed to maybe some of the cars kicking up some of that water that's still on the surface, or it's going to be a very, very light shower that's so light in nature that our radar imagery and our radar beam can't pick up. Now as we go into the overnight hours, the cloud cover does remain present. A couple of light showers could be present for the morning hours tomorrow, so don't forget the rain jacket or the hoodie once again as you make your way outside, especially if you're heading up to the north. North Georgia going to see its fair share of rain once again tomorrow. But then as we transition into Wednesday afternoon, there's a little bit of a difference, maybe some peaks of sunshine, which would definitely be a very welcome sight. But here is that rain organizing ahead of that frontal boundary I was just talking about. Looks like it makes its entrance into our western counties here in central Georgia between 2 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And of course, you could have some scattered light showers ahead of this actual frontal boundary. But we continue into the afternoon time frame, Macon, Warner Robins, getting over into portions of I-16. We'll begin to start to see some of that light rain or maybe even some pockets of steadier rain. You see some yellow colors embedded within this line of rain. And then as we transition into the evening hours around 7 to 8 p.m., we do see this line of rain exiting our easternmost counties. So I think by around 8 to 9 o'clock, this rain will be out of here in areas farther over to the west. You're going to be free of rain a little bit earlier than, say, areas like Johnson County, Washington County. So we will start to see some clearing in the cloud cover behind this frontal boundary and maybe a brief window of actually getting a glimpse of some sunshine in the later half of tomorrow. But I think we're just going to have a bit more moisture in the forecast, and that's also going to be a reason that we are going to see some slightly warmer high temperatures tomorrow. We actually look to make a rebound back into the 60-degree mark, which is still going to be on the chillier side compared to average, but it's warmer than the last 2 days, somewhere in the 50s. And then as we go overnight into early morning on Thursday, we do see some cloud cover build back into the forecast. Remember, I talked about that low pressure center. It's going to pass us just to the north in states like Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina. Well, the closer we are to that center of low pressure, the closer to that counterclockwise rotation we are going to be associated with it. So we're actually going to see some moisture behind this frontal boundary courtesy of that wraparound circulation, and that's going to propel another round of some overcast skies into Thursday afternoon, and along with that we'll have a couple of drizzle showers that are embedded within that cloud cover as it passes through, mainly in Thursday afternoon. It will also do a good job of limiting the warm up, so we'll see another bump down in the temperatures as we go into Thursday afternoon. But as we head into the nighttime hours and transition into Halloween, it looks like finally our conditions and our skies are finally clearing out. We'll have a gorgeous sunrise for Friday morning, but it is definitely going to be on the chilly side. When you don't have cloud cover present overnight, that does allow your morning low temperatures this time of year to dip lower and lower and lower. It is going to be maybe even cold, dare I say, as you walk out the door on Friday morning. But first things first, let's talk about how much more rainfall we have to add on to the totals we've already seen. It still looks like there's pretty good agreement in widespread rainfall totals of maybe about a quarter more of an inch adding on to the totals we've seen so far. So most areas find themselves still below the 1 inch mark, probably not going to get above that 1 inch mark. But I do believe that at least the widespread rain should be just enough to at least prohibit the drought conditions from worsening, as opposed to maybe alleviating them or improving some of those dry conditions. If anyone does see kind of a reprieve in the dry conditions, I imagine it's going to be right here around Bibb and northern Houston County, right smack dab in the middle of central Georgia, those areas that did see some totals up to 1, maybe even 2 inches of rain. But I did mention a steady breeze throughout today. When do the gusty winds go away? Well, we still hold on to the breeze late into this afternoon, maybe not quite as gusty as what we've seen so far. With the passage of our frontal boundary tomorrow, we'll see some isolated pockets where wind gusts could get up to maybe 25 or 30 miles per hour. But most of central Georgia should just expect pretty widespread breeze and some occasional gusts up to 15 to maybe 20 miles per hour. And then as we go into Thursday, starting off the morning breezy already, take a look at what happens in the afternoon. After the passage of this frontal boundary, it looks like we're going to have our fair share of gusty winds, up to 25, maybe even 30 miles per hour. And if any of these isolated pockets of that red shade show up, that's going to indicate your wind gusts that could get maybe 30 to 35 miles per hour. So Thursday should be the breeziest of the next 3 days, and then hopefully that breeze will finally subside as you walk out the door on Friday morning. But we're going to need to see not only the red shades, the yellow shades, but also these blue shades, which are slightly less gustier winds than what you see in the yellow and the red shades, get out of the picture completely. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that the winds won't be a factor as you wake up on Friday morning, because remember, I was talking about some very cold temperatures as you walk out the door for Halloween morning. So besides a 10% chance of a drizzle throughout today, really not looking at much in the way of rain. We will see widespread rain once again tomorrow. We probably will give this rain chance even more of an uptick to maybe about an 80 or a 90%. But with more humidity in the forecast, our temperatures should be slightly warmer, somewhere in the mid 60s, even though we don't expect too much clearing in the cloud cover until the frontal boundary actually makes its way past you and all that rain has already passed you. Then our morning low temperatures, with more of just some scattered cloud cover present overnight Wednesday into Thursday morning. We should see the numbers dip down into the low 40s, but we'll also have drier air funnel in behind that frontal boundary. So lower dew point temperatures mean you can have some lower temperatures, and that's why 42 is going to be our coolest morning of the next 3 days as you walk out the door on Thursday. And then Thursday afternoon, as we're trying to warm up throughout the day, we do see a good passing cluster of some widespread overcast skies. So 61 degrees for an afternoon high temperature with a 10% chance of a drizzle once again on Thursday. Here's a look at the humidity values. We don't have too much humidity in the forecast today, so that's why one of the reasons why we're not going to see much besides just a couple of minuscule sprinkles and maybe even a drizzle or a mist at times throughout today. Then as we go into tomorrow afternoon, like I mentioned, that frontal boundary is kind of merging up against whatever moisture is left in our forecast, and it's going to continue to lift all that moisture that it does have ahead of it. It's not a substantial amount, but it is going to result in some flashes of light green over central Georgia, some dew point temperatures that try to make a return up into the 60s throughout Wednesday afternoon. But then as the front sweeps through, breezy conditions ensue, and we are going to see drier air continue to funnel in as we head into early Friday morning. So your morning low temperatures are going to be the warmest today and tomorrow. We start to see a downtick in these numbers as the skies steadily clear out and heading into the end of the work week. 42 for a morning low temperature on Thursday, down to 39 and 38 degrees as you're walking outside. Right there around 8 a.m. on Friday and Saturday mornings. If you have a bit of a breeze present, the wind chill factor is going to be even cooler than those numbers. So definitely want to make sure you're bundling up, especially if you have any plans to say take a trip down I-75 early on Saturday morning to go cut across the I-10 and head to the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, Georgia and Florida squaring off on Saturday afternoon. Your afternoon high temperatures each of the next 5 days will continue to be below average. We talked about why tomorrow is going to be slightly warmer than the last 2 days because we do see the resurgence of some moisture in the atmosphere, and you can't have temperatures that are lower than your dew point temperatures. So as the dew point temperatures increase, it will allow for a steady warm up with your actual temperatures. And then as we have passing cloud cover on Thursday and we have drier air present, so not as warm of dew point temperatures, we are going to see a slightly cooler afternoon high on Thursday. And then we'll see a steady warming trend with almost completely sunny skies or mostly sunny skies Friday and Saturday, but still going to take a while to return to not only the 70-degree mark, but also average this time of year, sitting at 75. And in terms of the humidity, we do see that drop off in between Wednesday and Thursday, and we keep the low humidity in the forecast as we head throughout the weekend, but starting to see those numbers climb back up as we head into the beginning of the work week next week. So first things first, let's go to the long range models where we don't have any talking points until we get into the beginning of next week. There's not a whole lot of model agreement as of right now, but it does look like some form of a boundary is going to move across the northern Gulf, and we could start to see some tropical moisture maybe start to organize a little bit. Overall, I think an increase in moisture from south to north is going to be in store for the beginning of the work week next week, and we do have some scattered shower chances, but you do see that there's not a whole lot of agreement. European right here still has the rain chances staying put into Tuesday afternoon, and the GFS sent whatever that tropical organization or that low pressure center was way up to the north and the northeast. We need to see a whole lot better of agreement before we start to give an uptick to the rain chances for the beginning of next week. But let's talk about your Halloween day planner. What do you need to know at certain times throughout the day for your Friday afternoon and for all your Halloween festivities as you get into the evening and the nighttime hours? The morning hours, a nice and brisk chilly start, 43 degrees around 9 a.m. We will have already seen a steady warming trend from our morning low values, but plenty of sunny skies and a temperature somewhere in the low 40s to the mid 40s should be present right there around 9 a.m., but going to be even cooler, even into the upper 30s as you head outside for maybe heading out to the bus stop or heading out to work and trying to get that morning coffee to warm you up. As we head into the afternoon, pleasant and sunny, high temperature of 66 degrees, which is still well below average, about 9 degrees below average, in fact. However, compared to yesterday, compared to today with high temperatures in the upper 50s, 66 does feel like a pretty substantial warm up. I think it's going to be a very pleasant afternoon time period, but that will be pretty short-lived because as you head into the hours past sunset around the late evening time frame, 9 p.m., make sure you layer up because your numbers go back down into the 50s. At least we will keep the skies nice and clear, but that will allow for a bit of a quicker cool down as we head into any plans. But 54 for a temperature, kind of a rough estimate right now. I think you should plan on some temperatures at least in the 50s around 9 p.m. If you have plans to stay out even later, say around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, getting into midnight, those numbers are going to be even cooler than 54 degrees. Remember that morning low I forecasted for Saturday morning of 38 or 39 degrees, one of the two, upper 30s nonetheless. So we have to make our way down there eventually, and we're going to make our way down there pretty quickly. So Halloween over the last 10 years. This is set to be probably one of the coolest Halloweens that we have seen over the last decade. You can see back in 2016, this does grab your eye because Halloween back in 2016, we had a high temperature of 90 degrees. Yes, very thankfully we are not dealing with that this year, but you can see at least the 70s for high temperatures between 2015 and 2019, including 2019 where we had about a half-inch of rainfall. So we got up to 84 degrees before that rain got going. Morning low temperatures as low as 42 degrees back in 2019. So pretty substantial warm up from the morning low to the afternoon high back in 2019. Then you go into the 2020s, where we got a trace of rain back in 2020 itself and just over 1/10 of an inch of rain back in 2022. You're actually going to see that my morning lows that I have forecasted for this Halloween morning are lower than any that we've seen over the last 10 years in afternoon high temperatures. If you remember what Halloween felt, say, about 2 years ago, that's kind of the same afternoon high temperatures that we are going to be dealing with. But I think I can remember what I was doing around Halloween 2 years ago. It was nice and breezy. Hopefully we don't have too much in the way of a breeze to factor in and maybe make it feel a little bit chillier outside. We should have an abundance of sunshine, so hopefully your highs in the mid to maybe even the upper 60s feel a bit warmer and a bit better than, say, Halloween back in 2023. So now let's check in on the tropics. Hurricane Melissa. I have zoomed in on Jamaica because Melissa is fastly approaching landfall if it hasn't made a landfall just yet. This is the island of Jamaica. You may notice with some of the labels like Montego Bay and Kingston. This is a very, very well-defined eye, and it looks like it's approaching western Jamaica right now to make a potential landfall. Landfall won't happen until we see the center of the eye go over a portion of land, so I would anticipate that right there around lunchtime, maybe even getting into the 1 p.m. hour. But Melissa continues to just have some staggering numbers. Category 5 storm, but an upper end Category 5 storm. This is one of the strongest storms we have ever seen down in the Atlantic Basin. 185-mile-per-hour winds. Those are sustained winds. Those aren't even taking into account the occasional gusts that can be higher. A pressure that is now below 900 millibars, 892 millibars. This is rivaling some of the lowest pressures that we've ever seen with the tropical system. I believe the lowest pressure we've ever seen recorded was Hurricane Wilma back in 2005 of 882 millibars. So only 10 millibars off a very historical storm for the strongest storm in terms of the lowest pressure we've ever seen recorded in the tropics. And then moving to the north and the northeast at 9 miles per hour. So Melissa has picked up speed as it is fastly approaching that western coast of Jamaica. Having a bit of a faster motion, not necessarily a bad thing. It has been moving at around 3 to 4 or maybe 5 miles per hour as of recently. If we can get this storm to start to move faster, that means the impacts will be gone a little bit quicker in Jamaica, who has continued to see round after round of tropical rain as of the last couple of days, but still forecasted to have some pretty devastating and catastrophic impacts in the island of Jamaica. Those are not terms that we say lightly as meteorologists. We've been continuing to watch coverage all morning long, and Melissa is having a landfall that is very, very imminent over the next couple of hours. And I imagine portions of western Jamaica are virtually never going to look the same. It is going to be very, very drastic, maybe even the potential for 30 to 40 inches of rain, and very mountainous terrain down there in Jamaica. So of course, all that rainfall that falls in the mountains has to go down the mountains. So those lower lying areas near the coast are going to be subject to their fair share of inland flooding, along with the combination of drastic storm surge with some very, very gusty winds blowing all of that ocean water in the Caribbean onshore into coastal Jamaica. So this is where things stand as of the 11 a.m. advisory. We'll have quite a few advisories with Melissa throughout the course of this Tuesday. And just taking a look at the path in the future, still going to be a major hurricane as it crosses over and makes a second landfall in eastern Cuba. Then it should make a form of a third landfall down in the central and southeastern Bahamas. And then it's going to continue to steadily weaken, but still a Category 2 storm after interacting with all of that mountainous terrain in Jamaica and eastern Cuba, and going to make a beeline path up to the island of Bermuda and impact them as a high-end Category 1 storm as is forecasted right now. It's probably sometime overnight Thursday into early Friday morning, but the good news is it stays well away from the coast of the United States, not looking at any impacts down in anywhere except maybe the southern coast of Florida, which could see some increased rip currents. Current watches and warnings, we do see plenty of hurricane warnings. Eastern Cuba, Jamaica, the Bahamas, and then these areas outlined in blue. Tropical storm warnings, meaning that tropical storm force impacts, a little bit less drastic than hurricane force impacts, are going to be very likely over in Haiti and Turks and Caicos over the next 48 hours. So here's a look at the numbers for hurricane season. 13 named storms after Melissa formed, which is one below average, but still well off what was forecasted by Colorado State. 5 hurricanes and now 4 major hurricanes, and 3 of these major hurricanes have been Category 5 status, with Hurricane Melissa said to be a historical storm down in the Atlantic Ocean. So we will continue to provide you with updates, but our thoughts and prayers are certainly going to those people in Jamaica and in the Northern Caribbean. Now let's take a look at your 7-day forecast really quickly. 60s for highs for the rest of the work week. Widespread rain on Wednesday, still holding on to a little bit of a sprinkle chance.